So welcome and let's and let's get started. All right, so goal creation and diploma options. Okay, so our agenda today, we're going to talk about actual creating transition goals. We're going to talk about Georgia diploma options as well as Newton County options, and then some tips and resources to share with y'all. Okay, so first off, all right, so creating transition goals. Who sets the goals? These are set by the IEP team. Now, remember that your child is part of the IEP team. So it is input from the team, the parents, and the child. So it's a combined effort to make sure that we create these transition plans and transition goals so they help students with disabilities successfully move from school to life to adult life and be successful and as independent as possible. And especially try to make sure that it's geared toward their interests, their strengths, and really what they want to do with their lives. And they make sure that everything is monitored and developed and accounted for through middle school and high school. So to make sure that when they do graduate high school or age out of high school, that they are doing what they want to do. So when are goals set? Goals are set in the first transition meeting. Now, by law, that's no later than 14, but in Newton County, we create these during the first annual transition meeting of their 8th grade year. Okay. And then they are revisited at least annually when they do their annual review. Students are given assessments again, usually informal, or they're hold a discussion with their case manager in case their dreams change or what they want to do changes and stuff like that. So we can correct things, alter things to make sure that we, again, follow what the child wants to do when they leave school. Okay. So it can change over the years, just like everybody else. We change as we grow. Now, creating transition goals. So make sure that you give your child a voice as well as us, so we give assessments that help determine what their strengths are, what their preferences are, and really kind of what they want to do. So here are a few things, though, that parents can do in order to try to help give input about what they also want for their students, because it's important to hear from parents as well and to have feedback and input into what they being the student does when they graduate, especially if you maintain guardianship and things like that. Okay, so these are 3 things, surveys that, and these are hot links that you can go to and find parent surveys built by various entities. Okay. So please make sure you take advantage of those. If not, you can also ask your case manager. They should have at least one parent survey that they can have you fill out as well. Okay. Now, when we create these goals, they evolve around 3 categories. All right. One is education and training, one is employment, and one is independent living. All right. And all of these comprise the transition plan in order to help them reach their goals for after graduation during post-secondary. Now, all right, so let's talk about actually creating post-secondary transition goals. These are our long-term goals. These are what the kids want to do after they leave high school. Okay, so it must be an actual outcome. All right, so remember that these outcomes, they're not annual. This is what they're going to do after they graduate. We're going to talk about the annual transition goals that will be developed in order to help meet these post-secondary transition goals. So we want to make sure to specifically state what they want to do from the assessments and from their interviews and stuff like that. So by law, educators are required to have education and training and employment. Now, independent living is the 3rd category we talked about. And that is applied if appropriate, unless the student is taking the Georgia alternate assessment. If they are taking the Georgia alternate assessment, then independent living goals are required by law as well. So just depending on the student and where they are, depends on if they have all 3 or just the 2. Though I do make sure to tell our case manager and teachers to not dismiss independent living, because there are definitely skills that every person needs to learn, and or are responsible for anything from cooking and laundry to signing up for the draft or registering to vote and things like that. So almost everybody has types of independent living goals that they could and need to accomplish before leaving high school so they can be as independent as possible. Okay. And it's the case manager's responsibility to guide these students through these plannings and explorations so they make sure to have a meaningful transition plan as well as post-secondary goals. All right. Now, these are three examples that you may see in the IEP transition plan. So you have education and training, employment, independent living, like we said. So an education training maybe after graduation, student will receive on-job training in a retail setting. Employment might be after graduation, the student will be employed in a retail setting. And then, of course, independent living, the student will live at home with his parents and sometimes may expounded upon and say the student will live at home with his parents and be involved as much as possible or things like that. But these are examples of the type of post-secondary or long-term goals that you may see in the transition plan. All right. Now, let's actually talk about the annual transition goals because these are the ones that kind of support and help the student actually get to those post-secondary goals. And these are actual annual goals. And these are the things that they're going to do in school in order to prepare for after school. Now, I'll bring up employment first, though I know in our presentation so far, we've had education and training first, and it's presented that way in the IEP, but I encourage the case managers and teachers and educators, as well as the students, to look at employment first, because you need to determine what job they want to have after school before you can actually come up with an education and training plan. So I start with employment first. So with employment, these things that you're going to look at, such as occupational awareness, employment-related life skills, and the specific pathways to get to the career and knowledge and skills that they want to do. Now, these are types of things that they can look at, like investigating careers, completing job applications. You know, we can look at soft skills or hard skills or essential skills, employability skills, creating or strengthening work ethics or stamina or pre-employment skills like interview skills and resume building. So other pre-employment skills are provided by the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation. And so these are called pre-ed skills or pre-employment skills. And again, they support things that we do like interviewing skills, resume building, soft skills, and things like that, self-advocacy and self-determination. These are all things that the Georgia Voc Rehab try to also help the schools as well as Newton County teach the kids so they can be prepared for life after high school. All right. Now, here are some actual examples of some employment goals that you may see. So, one, when given the opportunity, access to internet, the teacher's email. David will utilize his technology device to record 3 jobs of interest in a field of automotive repair, and then email them to his teacher as an advisor by 2024. So this does a couple things. It teaches the kid how to, look up jobs of interest, find places to possibly work, and then email other folks because, as we well know, you may have to email your resume or follow-ups and things like that. So it helps communication as well. Another one, given simulated instruction during community-based instruction. Chaz will use eye gaze to match the appropriate greeting signs for for the work setting with 80% accuracy. So again, we're trying to teach a child how to properly communicate and socialize and in situations that may come up while working or training to prepare for work. Or we may be given a list of 100 work-related words, and now we'll correctly read a minimum of 50 words related to community locations or work, such as those that might be listed in work memos or bus schedules within 6 seconds of saying them 3 times in a row. So again, trying to get them familiar with work vocabulary and things like that. So trying to prepare them for employment, okay? Now, the next one we were talking about before. So once we determine what the child wants to do, then we need to talk about how we're going to get them trained, right? So we look at the competencies the life-centered competencies or training needs or job training in particular. And then, of course, these are the types of things that we can look at. Investigating, again, the post-secondary options, attending college fairs or school visits, researching programs of study, taking entrance exams, submitting applications. Dual enrollment's also a possibility. And then learning other hard and soft skills like reducing absences or tardies in organization. All these things are needed in order to be successful in the workplace, right? So these are some of the goals that you might actually see. So given direct instruction for completing post-secondary institution applications, guided practice, and personal information, Kimberly will apply to 2 technical colleges that have programs in law enforcement. When provided pre-ETS training and instruction, Aaliyah will participate in on-job training at 2 employment places in a retail setting. And then when given direct instruction, personal information, and access to internet, Mary will apply for 2 part-time jobs in the medical office. So if you look at these, these all have end dates. All right. So again, these are annual goals that must be completed with within the year designated by the transition plan. Okay. And then, of course, that obviously means that every year these things will be changed and updated as the student reaches these goals, completes these goals. All right. Now, of course, again, we're also talking about independent living. And again, it is required by law for those students that are on the Georgia alternate assessment. And then again, I also make sure to emphasize with the teachers and case managers to consider these things when they're looking at other students as well, because some people may need social training because they're going to live in a dorm with a stranger, and so they may need to learn socialization and social skills to deal with those type of things. So independent living is important for everyone, not just those students that are on the GAA track. Okay. Now, again, these are types of things that we can look at. Daily living skills like personal care, dressing, grooming, feeding, restroom usage, as far as just plain out well-being. I think that kind of goes for everybody if you don't know the honest truth. We can look at adult living skills and post-secondary options such as house maintenance, budgeting, healthcare needs, as well as interpersonal interactions, participation in the community, such as paying taxes, voter registration, and leisure activities. Other related services like counseling or vocational rehabilitation. We could talk about communication, expressing themselves, expressing their needs or their wants. They could need to be instructed how to use assistive technology devices or symbols. They also may be things that they need to learn to enhance things like mobility, learning to walk or use their wheelchairs or their walkers, or again, use assistive technology or not in order to make sure that they can properly participate in whatever goals that they try to have for after school and post-secondary. And again, these are a couple of different examples of the actual goals that you might see when provided a checklist, weather calendar for the month. Lana will select the appropriate clothing needed for daily weather or given access to application, teacher provide instructions. Ron will complete all steps listed to apply for vocational rehabilitation services. Another one will be provided with a picture board or a checklist, access to the restroom and instructions. Stu will perform daily grooming and hygiene activities, such as washing their faces or brushing their teeth. Okay, so these are things that people can do. And again, you know, there's things like learning how to drive. Now, that may be obviously up to the parent and the student, but learning how to drive and operate vehicle may very well be something that's needed. Or learning bus schedules if they're going to take public transportation, or acquiring transportation through things like, oh Lord help me, the three different drive services. Anybody please help me. I'm having oh man. Anyway, or get services through driving services. Anyway, moving. All right, so we want to talk about, now we need to talk about options, diploma options. So what are the diploma options? that are offered by the state and offered by Newton County. And as you can see on the bottom, there's the high school diploma, the state defined alternate diploma, and then there's a special education diploma and a high school certificate. And this hot link over here to the left will take you to this information in more detail if you would like to explore more. But for Newton County, we offer the Georgia High School Diploma, which is commonly known as the regular education diploma, as well as the alternate diploma. Now, this replaced the quote unquote special education diploma because now this alternate diploma allows for students to take part into post secondary trainings like college and technical schools and things like that. Now, they may need to take prerequisites, but they can go to post secondary options with the alternate diploma. Okay, so we think that this is a better option because it gives more options for students with special needs to do more. Okay. All right. So the Georgia High School graduation requirements. Again, you must participate in the Georgia milestones and, of course, assessments. This is for all non-Georgia alternate assessment students. And, of course, they must satisfy attendance and unit requirements, like for English, for math, for science, things like that. This also allows them to attend any technical or four-year colleges, but also allows for entrance into the military as well, okay? Now, the alternate diploma, it is not equivalent, but it is typically meant for those students with significant cognitive disabilities that participate in the Georgia alternate assessment. It offers post-secondary educational opportunities, like we stated earlier. It will limit the military service, and it does emphasize self-determination, daily living, and work skills. Now, know and understand, with this diploma, you still have to meet requirements in order to get into various programs, all right? Whether it be a 2-year or 4-year college or technical school, they will still have to meet those requirements. So they may have to take prerequisites and things like that, like we discussed earlier, in order to do those things, but still it does give them the opportunity to participate in those types of trainings and schoolings. All right. Now, here's a flyer about the alternate assessment, and here are hot links to get to said flyer, as well as going to frequently asked questions if you need or want to have more information. Then again, at the end of the day, if you need any questions answered, of course, always contact myself, Dr. Waters at the Newton County School System, as well as Aaron Hallett, the parent mentor for the county, and we'll try to, if we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer and get back to you. I promise you. Okay. Now, I'm going to hand over this last part of the presentation to Erin Highland. She's going to go over some tips and resources and things like that for y'all. So, Ms. Howard, if you will take over, here is your screen for tips and resources. So please.
Thank you so much. So much wonderful information that you've shared. And as a parent going through transition with my child, my own child, I'm trying to practice these tips and utilize these resources as well. So please use me as a resource because I'm living this right alongside with you. So just some tips to think about when you are setting goals or even thinking about transition. Start early and think long term because we don't want you to come up to the very end of high school and say, oh no, what's going to happen next? What are we going to do? So it's always good to really, start learning about transition and what it is, what your child may need, even as early as elementary school. Focus on real life or functional skills. Those are the skills that are going to be used to go grocery shopping, to do laundry, stuff around the house, the real life making sandwiches, those functional daily living skills. When we were talking about goals, and you've probably seen these in IEPs, a lot of them say things like with 100% accuracy on 4 out of 5 opportunities or something like that. You don't have to worry about putting those words together. Just share your ideas with your child's IEP team. And the case manager will put everything into words. So you could say, I want my child to work on learning money skills. It can be so basic like that. And they can, that starts the conversation about what exactly about money, are you wanting to have your child learn about, or, the functional living skills, making a sandwich. So it can be just very broad and basic ideas that can start the conversation, and the case manager will actually create those goals with the wording for the IEP. So another great tip is involve your child in every step. They're the reason why we're doing this. And give them a little bit of autonomy and let them make choices. Let them help decide what they want their life to look like after high school. Keep things realistic though. That's not included on here, but definitely keep things realistic. That helps in the long run for both you and your child to keep things realistic. Um, Something that is incredibly important at any age is keeping an open line of communication with your child's teacher. They're with your child every day for 8 hours. So they're with your child for a good chunk of time. So they know your child not as well as you, but they know your child. So use them as a resource and keep those lines of communication open. Ask them, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, we're really struggling on this goal. If you're working on supporting goals at home, we're really working on this, struggling on this goal. What can I do at home to support this? So keeping that open line of communication with your child's teacher can really build um, it builds that relationship not only for you and the child's teacher, but your child and their teacher, plus you and your child. It supports everyone's relationship. At home, practice self-determination and self-advocacy skills with your child. And we later in the series, we have a whole presentation on self-determination and self-advocacy. So be on the lookout for that. And then also remember, you don't have to do this alone. Build a community of support. Include your child's teacher, their therapist, family members, other community members. But you don't have to do this alone. Reach out to someone in the school system. I am always happy to support families. That is my job. And, like I said, I am going through this with my own child. So I'm more than happy to support. And then one last little tip is to celebrate the wins no matter how small. Because wins, like I said, no matter how small, they add up to the big wins. Okay. So these are all hot links, and when we upload these to our YouTube channel, we'll make sure to include these resources. Um, Dr. Waters, if you actually don't mind opening up the transition, the parent to parent one, I do want to show y'all parent to parent, just because this is a your first stop shop. If you do not just about transition, but if you I think your screen went away. But parent to parent of Georgia, it's not just about transitions. They are the Center for Disabilities Parent Training Center. So up at the top where you see training, all these links at the top, the support, information, training, you can do, yes, wonderful. This website is a plethora of information. If you'll go to the information tab and click on roadmap. So this is the roadmap and each of those links. So if you're in a different stage of life, whether it's just receiving a diagnosis, you want to learn more about employment or advocacy, all of these links you can click on them and they take you to a page full of information. So parent to parent is a wonderful resource to have. for anything, not just transitions, but they have a whole section on transitions. You can go back to the PowerPoint.